Hello, everyone, and welcome to this episode of The Good Life for Nebraska Seniors. I'm your host, Donna Blum with Graceful Senior Transitions, and today I am so thrilled to be joined by my friend, and his name is Jim Sadler with Thrivent Financial. Welcome, Jim.
Well, thank you, Donna, for having me.
Well, I'm so glad you're here.
Yeah.
Well, today's topic for the show is, I'm going to read it here. We are talking about the last third of life, creating income, security, and legacy.
Yeah, or I like to think about it as the best third, right?
The best third. I like that even better.
We've worked all of our life, finally to get to retirement. People should enjoy it. I think there's not enough emphasis on really planning, not only financially, but just mentally getting aware for that period of our life where we can kind of do what we want to do, never stop learning, never stop serving, but it's a time of life that's exciting. So many people go into it and they hit that first Monday that they don't have to go to work and they're like, oh, this is exciting. But then they go through that first 90 days of maybe traveling and doing all that and kind of refer to that as like the sugar rush, right? And then they come back and they're like, okay, so what do I do? So there needs to be a plan, not only financially, but what are you going to do with the rest of your life? Are you going to volunteer? Are you going to serve? Something needs to be done.
Right. Well, I'm looking forward to the day that I have to make those decisions.
Exactly.
And it's not too terribly far off.
Oh, yeah. As we like to tell people, every day is going to be Saturday.
Yes.
Lowe's and the grocery stores are all open on Tuesday afternoons. So
well, that could be dangerous, right?
Exactly.
Well, that's kind of what we're here to talk about, right?
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
Jim, as we're getting started, would you mind giving our audience a little bit of information about you and sort of your journey, how you ended up in financial planning?
Yeah, I have had several wonderful careers. I started out, I majored actually in music, went into sound and lighting production, was a producer at a Western Heritage Park in Wyoming for a few years, transitioned out of that and became a mall manager, if you know what I mean. I managed malls all over the country for about 27 years, ended up here in Omaha, managed Westroads Mall for 17 years, got out of that, and it was strange because I was kind of looking for a transition, a new position, and a person from my church said, hey, you should talk to Thrivent Financial. And I had no idea. And I went in and found out that, hey, it's exactly what I wanted to do with the rest of my career, if you can call it that, an entr'acte. And it's basically, as a financial advisor, I just help people with their finances. I'd spend all those years, budgeting for major malls and, handling people's personal finances was, a lot more fun. And it's great to give that financial education to people.
Yeah. I always think it's interesting when you learn people's stories and where they started and where they ended up. And a lot of times what they went to school for example, is absolutely very different from what they end up doing.
Yeah. It's a journey. Life should, take you through different seasons of your life, and as long as you're willing to adapt and follow along, I think it all works out.
I like to think of it as an adventure.
There you go. There you go.
Well, so we're kind of here to talk about financial planning, how to have a good strategy, a good plan in place for the best season of life.
There you go.
Why is financial planning for that best third of life different from planning during the working years?
Well, all through your working career, you're receiving that earned income, right? Your greatest asset that you have to produce wealth is your ability to produce income, right? Once you hit that retirement stage and that earned income, is turned off, and you turn on either a pension, Social Security, retirement accounts, well, then you're in more of a fixed, income. Hopefully it's enough, to get you through comfortably, but it's also a part of your life where you really need to focus in on budgeting, or as I like to say, a spending plan. That's why you need to know exactly what are your expenses going to be. Because I think as we go through our careers and we've got that income coming in, it's a little bit easier maybe not to hold to a strict plan, a budgeting plan, but in retirement it's really crucial. Mm-hmm. You need to know what your expenses are, and sometimes that takes a little bit of education, and people hear the word budget and they're like, I don't want a budget. But if you think of it really as a spending plan, what do you need to spend money on? And hopefully you've got things taken care of like debts and mortgage debt and things like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it makes so sense. So it's about being intentional about you deciding where your money's going to go. I think a lot of times when people think of a budget, they think it's going to be really restrictive, right?
Exactly.
But this is just about being very wise about, I have this amount, and you are developing the plan for, I am going to allocate this much here and this much here, so that you're telling your money how to work for you as opposed to just having it slip away.
Exactly. Right? I love the phrase that every dollar needs a job. Otherwise, it's going to go out and find its own job, and you're not going to know where it's working.
Yes.
So it's so critical to keep that in mind. And I always tell people a budget really just tells you two things. It tells you what you're spending your money on and how much, room you have from your income to your expenses. Hopefully that's a positive number. And if it is a negative number, then you need to go back and say, what am I spending on that I could really cut back? Mm-hmm. And I always tell people, it's your budget, it's your spending plan. If you love to go and eat out and you spend, X amount on, dining out, well, that's okay. That's what you love to do. Mm-hmm. Or if it's entertainment, or if it's, going on vacations, whatever is important to you, just make sure you budget for it, and you know what you're spending on.
Right, right. So many retirees, they worry about outliving their savings. What strategies can help create guaranteed income streams during that retirement season?
It's kind of a sad fact, but most people are more afraid of running out of money in retirement than they are of actually passing. And I get it, I understand that. But it's something that, once again, you need to find those sources of income, and hopefully you have several sources of income that are guaranteed for the rest of your life, such as Social Security. I know there's a lot of talk about it not being around, but in some form it will be there. But it shouldn't be your main source of income. There's other guaranteed sources, such as pensions. Now, a lot of those have gone away, but we've got a lot of great pensions, especially with Nebraska public employees. NPERS, Union Pacific, some of the bigger companies, they actually have wonderful, wonderful pensions. And there's ways that you can take that or elect it. Whether if you're married, does your pension, if you pass, travel on to your spouse? By percentage or a full amount, so you need to take that into account. You can also set up your own guaranteed income through annuities and other financial products to guarantee that you have a source of income for the rest of your life.
Okay. Yeah, when a lot of time I think when people think about retirement, they're like, there is no income, but that's not true. You can set it up so that you have income during those years.
And there's also, forms of, you've saved and you've got a pot of money, maybe in your 401k. Well, you need to have a plan. How are you going to take that out? You don't just completely take it out of the market. You need to have a plan to have some of it still growing, some of it, relatively moderate, where it's, relatively safe but still growing, and then a certain amount of maybe the next 3 years in a very, very safe place in the market, where it's maybe a fixed income, where you're not going to lose money as the market ebbs and flows, as we know it will.
So what are some non-qualified investment accounts, and how can they fit into a retirement income strategy?
Yeah, you have two main sources of retirement accounts or income accounts. You have non-qualified or qualified money. Qualified money means this is money in your traditional 401k or retirement plan that has not been taxed yet. It's been tax deferred. You've had that money deferred each year that you've put it in, so you've gained that tax advantage each year. Well, when you get into retirement and you pull it out, now it gets taxed. So that is qualified monies. Non-qualified would be it's already been taxed, such as a Roth account, where you pay the taxes on the money, put it into the account, and let it grow, right? So that's the two main differences.
And you really want to have a mix, right, of those two.
If you had a perfect world, you'd have everything that's already, non-qualified. But of course, that's not really possible for most people. You're going to end up with some, qualified money. Now, during your working years, even into retirement, you can do what's called a Roth conversion. Take money out, have it taxed, and put into this account so it can grow tax-free and you can withdraw it tax-free. Now, of course, you need to take a look at where you are in your tax bracket. Make sure you're not going to, bump yourself into the next tax bracket and hurt yourself. So it really needs to be done strategically.
Okay. Something that a financial advisor can help you to navigate, because that would be above my, I do not understand how all that works. I would need somebody to guide me for sure.
And that's what we love to do. The partner that I have is, she calls herself a tax nerd. And I love it because there's nothing more than we love to save people on taxes. I always say, you should pay your taxes, you should pay your fair amount, but it doesn't mean you have to tip, right? Don't pay more than you need to.
We don't.
Because the government will allow you to pay more taxes than you're supposed to.
We don't have to tip, Uncle Sam.
No tipping.
Okay, so you brought up Roth IRAs, and they're often called one of the most powerful retirement tools. What makes them so valuable for retirees and their heirs?
Yeah, it's wonderful because obviously when you put money into your Roth IRA during your working years, this is money that gets taxed at that point. Put in there and then it grows. One of the things that people don't realize is when you have a traditional IRA or a traditional retirement account, and you pass that on, if you should pass, and you pass that on to your heirs, your children, that could be a sizable amount. Well, once that passes, it becomes an inherited account where they have 10 years. Even if they're in their 30s, 20s, it doesn't matter. They have 10 years to take that money out and have it taxed. Unfortunately, when you pass, your children are probably in their highest earning years. This is money that's going to get stacked on top of their income already and most likely bump them up into another tax bracket. Passing on a Roth IRA, they still have 10 years to take it out, but it's not taxed. It just has to come out of that IRA and they can put it into a different account, but they don't have to worry about the taxes.
And you can move money from a traditional IRA into a Roth at any time?
Yeah, it's called a Roth conversion.
Okay.
And yeah, you can do that. It just needs to be done strategically because it is going to affect that year's taxes that you pay.
Okay. So the important thing to evaluate when you're making this decision is taxes, the tax implications of it, right?
We always look at all money through a tax lens. We like to think of, There's money that's taxed now. That's money that's in your bank account, things like that. You're earning interest on it. You're going to pay taxes on that. And then there's the next category that's taxed later, and that's your IRA accounts and things like that you're going to pay the taxes when you hit retirement. And then there's tax never, and that's the best, and that's where the Roth falls. It's taxes have already been paid. You don't have to worry about it. That's the other one that falls into that is life insurance. Life insurance is the best gift you could ever give somebody because it's completely tax-free.
So I wanted to ask you a little bit more about life insurance.
Yeah.
So many people think that insurance is a retirement planning tool, or I should say they don't think that it is a retirement planning tool. How can life insurance help create financial security and support legacy planning?
Yeah, well, if you have permanent life insurance, you can put money into it and build up the cash value that you can borrow from whenever you choose to. The biggest thing, though, is that legacy planning of passing it on. Most people think, well, I'll get a set amount and then I'll pass that on. That'll be great. And that's wonderful. But as a strategy, you can also use it as a vehicle to get money into it, money that you know you're going to pass on to your children, heirs, charities, things like that. And it becomes tax-free.
Okay.
It's just one more vehicle.
Okay. And some life insurance policies actually have a cash value associated with them that you can borrow against, or you want to talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, and that's called the cash value inside the policy. It has to be a permanent policy. There's two types of life insurance. Term life insurance, which is a set amount of years that you have that policy. It's affordable. It's much cheaper than permanent, but permanent is for the rest of your life. It also acts as a vehicle that you can put in and build up that cash value within the policy. So you'll have a death benefit and then a cash value. You are able to borrow on that cash value at any time. Now you also can pay it back if you need to, but yeah, a lot of people use that as a different kind of vehicle for themselves.
So paying it back is optional?
It is. If you take money out of the cash value, it's also going to lower that death benefit.
Got it.
So you need to be careful because that's really why you have the policy.
Sure. And when you pay it back, are you paying it back with interest? But basically, you're paying yourself back.
You are. It depends on how it's structured. A lot of times it is paid back with interest.
Okay. All right. But it's good to know. It's definitely we're talking about insurance. It's an insurance policy to be able to fall back on that cash value in a time of need, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's definitely something you want to talk over with a financial professional.
Very good. So one of the things that you mentioned earlier was an investment strategy where you have, for your retirement income, you are still investing in things that are a bit higher risk, but better gain, more moderate, and then low risk. And I thought that was really something that you did during your working years, but it is something that still applies even during the retirement years, is to have sort of that balance. Do you want to talk a little bit more about that?
It's, most people understand that when you're first starting out in your 20s and you get that first real job and everything, well, you should be invested pretty aggressively because you've got a long runway until you hit retirement, at 65, 55, whatever you're looking at. So you should be pretty aggressive. And as you progress towards retirement, well, that strategy begins to shift, right? Where you have, instead of everything in an aggressive portfolio, you kind of wean back to less and less risk because you have a shorter and shorter time period. However, even in retirement, you should follow a 3-bucket approach where the money that you're going to need in the next, say, 0 or now through the next 3 years, needs to be into a relatively safe bucket, a fixed account, something that's the market is really not going to be able to affect. And then the next bucket is that middle bucket. Maybe that's 4 years from now through 7, say. And that can be more of a moderate mix. But then that last bucket, you still need your money to grow. So that needs to be aggressive. And maybe that's years 7 from now through the end. And as you go through, and hopefully with the aid of a financial advisor, you can harvest from that third bucket, that aggressive bucket, and push it over now into that safe bucket, or the other way around, depending on where the market is. The worst thing you can do is have all of your money in an aggressive portfolio because you want to keep building it, and you get to retirement, well, and then the market goes down. Well, now you've got to take money out at a loss, and that's something we never want to do.
Right, right. So it's not where you develop your strategy and you set it and it's static. This is very dynamic. It ebbs and flows. It moves with what's happening in the economy, and it changes as maybe your life circumstances change.
Absolutely.
Or your goals change. So it's something how frequently should somebody revisit their retirement strategy?
Oh, you should meet with your financial professional at least once a year. Some folks, it's more than that. If you have a major life change, say you go through a divorce, you have the death of a spouse, all of those things affect your plan, and everybody's plan is different. There's no one set way to do retirement, which is, for me, part of the most fun. Because we always tell people, you're going to get to retire once. I get to retire hundreds of times because everybody's plan is different. But like you said, it needs to be revisited because it will change. As you go through life, just like you went through the first 2/3 of your life, really, really good things are going to happen to you. Really, really bad things are also going to happen to you. That's just the normal seasons of life. And if we're prepared, we want to just take as much risk out of that as we can.
Mm-hmm. That makes a lot of sense. So I'm sort of at that, I guess, the beginning phase of the best third.
Yeah.
And most of my retirement is going to be coming from Social Security and from my 401k. For somebody that's at this stage, let's say, or maybe somebody who hasn't really ever worked with a financial planner, they've just kind of done the standard, like, they put money obviously into Social Security, into 401k. What advice do you have for somebody that's right at that stage?
I would really tell people, go talk to a financial advisor. Everybody has those moments when they wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning and they're staring at the ceiling and they're like, do I have enough?
Yeah.
What am I going to do? How is this done? There's no greater joy for us than to sit down with somebody and talk them through it and go, you're going to be okay. This is the plan. This is how we're going to do it. We're going to take our Social Security at this age. We're going to turn on your 401k at this age. We're going to take this amount in income. We know what your expenses are. And as soon as people hear that, it's like this great weight is lifted, because it is complicated. But once you talk it through and find out exactly what people have for retirement and what their needs are, like I said, that weight just gets taken off their shoulders. And you can see it because most people are scared to death, and they shouldn't be. I mean, you should be looking forward to retirement because you know exactly what kind of income you're going to have and what you can do and how many trips to see the grandchildren you can have, and what are you going to do? Are you going to downsize? Are you going to talk to somebody like you that's going to help you through that transition into retirement? Get the plan and stop worrying about it, because it should be the best time of your life.
Yeah, Yeah, peace of mind.
Peace
right?
of mind,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah, absolutely. So we've got about 2 minutes left, and we're going to wrap up here. If you could give Nebraska seniors one piece of advice about budgeting and preparing financially for their retirement years, what would that piece of advice be?
I would say go talk to a financial advisor.
We're trying to hit home with
I,
that
I
one, right?
am,
Yes,
because
yes.
just don't struggle with
Right.
it. It's not something that you have to figure out on your own. The other thing I would say is find out what your expenses are. So many people just are winging it, right? They just know, oh, I spend this. Once you take a look at it and you know what you're going to need in retirement, especially, the basics, the four walls. What do you spend on groceries? What do you spend on fuel? What do you spend on mortgage? All of those things, get those in line so you know what you're going to do. Most people think, well, my expenses are going to be much, much lower in retirement. Not necessarily true. You know, it's every day is Saturday. You've got every day to travel. I mean, it's you're going to have the same kind of expenses. It's not like you're going to eat less.
That's true. Or
Probably eat more.
maybe, yeah. And you're
Exactly.
going to still need to buy gas and maybe
Yeah,
just as
yeah,
much. So
exactly.
this might seem like it's common sense to some, but for others, they're like, how do I even figure out where my money is going today? Just take their receipts, start an Excel spreadsheet,
Exactly.
just start breaking it down.
Thrivent has a wonderful free to anyone. You don't even have to be a Thrivent member. Just go online. It's called Money Canvas. And this will allow you to work with a professional over Zoom. You can get up to 3 Zoom meetings, and they will meet you where you're at. I've sent people to Money Canvas that didn't even know how to spell budget. And I've also sent people that already had their spreadsheets. They'll find out where you're at, and they will take you to the next level, completely free.
I'm going to take advantage of that.
There you go.
That's incredible.
Yeah, it's wonderful.
Well, Jim, I want to thank you so much for your time here today and for sharing your words of wisdom. And I want to thank everybody for watching today. Have a wonderful day. Bye now.